No, I think that's one thing that we've always discussed is to not try and grow too fast too quickly because people do that and they then start getting massive facts, massive sites, and there's a whole completely different ball game then, isn't it? I think if you think about why Elemental was growing quite quickly over the last few years, I mean, like doubling the capacity within that infrastructure and working with Lingfield with their marketing and things like that is, I don't think it's a big stretch. That site, you could have gone, tell you what, we get investment, get some sponsorship, we'll get some massive acts, have huge stage. You go from, 1,000, 1,500 to 10,000. We've seen so many brands and organisations just go full flat because they've done that too quickly.
They come and go fast. Hello, everybody. I'm Dean from Elemental, and we are back for week 2 of the Elemental podcast, telling you all about us, all about how to run a music festival, a boutique music festival, and everything we do. This week's episode, we are going to tell you a little bit about how we've started planning for this year's festival and what's been going on the last couple of weeks. And we will also do a small recap on what we spoke about last week. And then we will start delving back into the story of Elemental from where we got to last week. We got to year 2 of Oxted, I believe, last week. So we'll be heading to the final year of Oxted and also start delving into what happened there and how we ended up running our own music festival the following year, 2025, last year. So yeah, should be an exciting episode. How are you, Lukey?
All right, thanks, mate. Yeah, not too bad. I'm okay. Just it's we talked about at the start before we start recording properly around just trying to balance in work life, family life, and everything as well. So you told people last time that you went full time into it because you've got a few other businesses that you do and earn money from. But yeah, trying to balance it all is quite hard sometimes. So we might talk about it in another episode because I think, but a lot of people, especially music industry, do what you're doing, but also have day jobs and stuff as well. Can it make it a bit stressful? So
because obviously I'm full time music, but a lot of that is not based around Elemental or Deep Fiction or El Dino. A lot of that's private event work and equipment hire and corporate and weddings and that sort of stuff, which is great. I love it. It gives me a bit more time freedom during the week to explore projects that I'm passionate about, but it also weekends can be pretty busy when you've got loads of gigging to do and juggling the kids off and sport events. And when you've got a gig till 4 or 5 a.m. and then you're up for kids football at 8 a.m., it gets tiring. But while we're there, Lukey, tell us a bit about what do you do for work?
So recently I've been busted by some of my colleagues who found out what I do. So I try and keep it quite separate. So I'm quite a senior person in the NHS. I work in London in the NHS. So I look after making sure when you talk about commissioning, people are like, well, what's that? But it's looking after the services in the hospitals and GP practices to make sure that they deliver the service that they're supposed to with the money within the funding envelope they've got, and then supporting them when they can't. So I've got quite a big team that does quite a lot of that stuff over different areas. So
you enjoy it?
So I think, do I enjoy it? I love it. I really, really do like it because I think we've all been involved personally within NHS. So if everyone's got an affiliation to it, to be in it to try and improve it is really cool. And also, we're really passionate about helping people. Although I don't speak to residents and patients as much as I used to now because of how strategic my job is now. I always try and make sure I go out and see people because it's like anything. I think you talked about this last time, but it's very similar to getting gigs. You got to go and meet people and get a look and feel of a place. You got exactly that in business as well. You got to go out and see it. So if I'm seeing a hospital isn't doing particularly well in a certain area or needs a bit of extra support, you've got to go there and feel it and look at it. It's no good just looking at the numbers. So I do really like it, and the people I work with are amazing. I mean, the NHS goes through a lot of stress, doesn't it? The people that work in it are amazing. Yeah, that is good. But then, like I said, balancing that with
so how do you
kids.
Find? Obviously, you have a busy release schedule, especially the last few years, as well as gigging, as well as quite a what's the word? Quite a strenuous job, quite a intense job, and also you've got is it 2 boys at home?
Yeah,
2 boys at home. That's a lot going on, mate. How do you find balancing that? And obviously your wonderful wife
It
as
is.
well.
Well, I think today's probably not a good day to discuss that. I think really because I think I might have got the balance a little bit right. So it's I can feel burnt out at times, but also it's a release from sort of stress from home life and that. So also getting in a studio where you can't be interrupted is, I don't say it's like meditation because it's not, but it does really like sort of help me sort of ground myself a little bit. It really does really help.
It is.
And
It's,
then
sorry, carry on.
go on, mate. I was just saying, and then balancing the gigs is I found difficult. And you'll see that I've done probably quite a few less beginning of the year because of just trying to balance home and work is really busy at the moment. So I'm just really conscious of that. And obviously that's the stuff that pay the bills. This I love doing. You know, you get a bit of money for it, but not anything that's going to change the world. And then also the family's the most important thing as well. So sometimes I get the balance right and sometimes I get it really wrong. So just need to stop and pause on that sometimes.
It is very it's because it is a hobby effectively for a long time. Um, very. I mean, we touched on this last
It's a
week
nearly
briefly.
30-year hobby.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's the same as if you're part of a football team or a rugby team. I know you were a rugby boy. Um, it's it you're not doing it. I know obviously there's a dream to make money from it, the same as many people have a dream to make money from sport and things like that. It really is a labour of love for a long time. Obviously, I've
Yeah, it is.
managed to create certain businesses within the music world that will help cover the bills from my side. I'm very fortunate that my partner's very supportive and she's got a very stable job as well because the way my work is very seasonal, income's not a straight line. But the important thing between us is that um, the bills are paid and we've got a good relationship. And like you say, that balance at home with I've got two boys as well, is that balance at home between the kids, making sure that me and my partner get plenty of time and the work is done that needs to be done, and also exploring your hobbies and passions and also,
Yeah,
trying to get things like exercise in as well. I know you enjoy the gym.
I do. I do. But again, that's one thing that's probably dropped off recently. But I probably need to
Yeah,
do because
I've
then
been
that's really good for you.
this year, been trying to
You've been on it. You've been on it like this year.
really try and one of the one of the key reasons actually of being on it, and I think this is something we should definitely delve into in a later episode, is we're very busy, work's very busy anyway this year, plus Elemental is getting busier than it's ever been, and we've got some great opportunities this year. And Deep Fiction as an artist between me and Greg is getting busier than ever, is in my brain. I function a lot better when I'm working out a lot
Yeah, everyone does.
and eating better, which
Absolutely.
everyone does, and trying to keep my physical and mental health in a good place at this point will give us the best chance and me the best chance of pushing this year forward to places that I want it to be. So that's been quite a big focus this year. Is
It's really easy not to though. I went through a time of like, everything was about the music and just to see how far I could get with it. You get burnt out because you love doing it. You don't really stop and everything else. It can really affect sort of your relationships and work sometimes and all that. So it's then trying to really get that balance. Now I think in the last sort of couple of years, I realised like I love doing it and whatever happens, happens. If a track flops, because some do, well, most do, so you just go, oh, I really enjoyed that track. I did it. I did it for me. I quite enjoyed it. So therefore it's great. And then also recently ran the gigs, just try and do the gigs that, I think we talked about it last time, doing gigs that, you get some good cash for, or you're going to get a lot out of. You did a wicked gig this weekend where you got a lot out of it. It was looked really good fun.
it was brilliant. Yeah, we played at a working laundrette with a crew called Pulse and a guy called Sir Francis, who I've known for a little while, and it was really, really good fun, good energy, really good crowd, and sometimes, and that's like you say, we're trying to be more selective this year with the Deep Fiction gigs we're taking. There needs to be with value in it, like we spoke about last time. And like you say, if we're doing that, it's taking time away from either our partners, our wives, our kids, our other jobs, and our physical and mental health. So there needs to be value there for us to spend the time to doing it. We've done we've all done, empty rooms at silly times of morning just because it's a gig and we want to be pressing the buttons and playing music, which for a certain time period is what you have to do to find your feet and learn your way around being a DJ and controlling them sort of rooms. But there becomes a point where you've got to start making decisions around what's actually beneficial for you, not just musically, but as a human being and around the life that you've got outside of music.
Those rooms are where you learn your craft, though, to be honest. Anyone can turn
Absolutely.
up to a rammed room at 1 o'clock in the morning with
Yeah,
people jumping around.
you absolutely can. You can.
Those ones where you're warming up or finishing off are the ones, or the ones that are like half empty, half full. With you,
Well, we had it
are the
Saturday at the laundrette. There was a brilliant guy called, I think it was Joe Chips something. A really nice chap come on before us. He was sort of the warm up DJ, and we came on second. And the Mascanada brothers, who are wicked, love them too. They came on after us, but the room was about half full when we got on. Joe played a really, really great warm up set. Just got the room moving, and it really just worked. And we took it from probably sort of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. Some really disco funky stuff, and we never got past about 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 6, and we kept it really funky, really fun. And by the end, the room was packed, and it felt like well, it was only an hour. I mean, we all want longer. Me and Greg both came off and said, "Oh, we could have stayed there for 4 or 5 hours and just carried that
That's good
room
fun.
on."
That's a good
Just
set. That's a good
absolutely
set.
loved it. And Mascanada came on after us and absolutely smashed it as well, and it just carried on through the night. But although it was early, it was just nice to help build that room and take it from one place to the next and pass the baton on and
That is good fun.
to the next DJ. So
But anyway, we've gone completely off kilter here, and it's so.
yeah, but on
What
some
we just
interesting points, I think.
it is no, they are they're good. So what we discussed last time was basically how Element was set up, a bit about yourself as well, and then also we talked around the Oxted, how that came about, how Elemental started from small bars and then went to festival quite quickly. How you can make contacts in industry, and then today we're going to talk about how Oxted finished, and then how we found the venue at Titsy's Brewery, which you ran your first festival with. It'd be good to understand some of those hidden costs and stuff, because I think we discussed last time that actually you had a really good relationship with Oxted, but actually it's quite a safe space to try things out. But going on your own is a whole different ballpark, and then I think it's probably worth talking about Lingfield, but I don't know if we want to talk about Lingfield now because the tickets are now live, aren't they?
So let's start with Lingfield because obviously one of the biggest part of this is to take everyone on the journey with us. And this is probably the most detailed space that you'll get it. Obviously, we can give you little snippets online with our socials, our Instagram, our YouTube Shorts, and our TikTok. But this is a bit more in depth. So let's start with the last 2 weeks, probably 3 to 4 weeks actually at Lingfield Park. So we've had a really, really good start with them. So basically, let's go back to the start of the year. We were looking for a new home. We'll delve into why it's not Titsy at a later date. And we've worked with Lingfield Park before, which will actually cross over with some of today's story and the last year at Oxted Festival about how I met them. But I know some of the team at Lingfield Park. We've done some smaller bits there before. And I was looking for a new home for festival this year. I had a day of meetings. I think I met 7 or 8 venues across the area.
Just before you do that, just to say that Lingfield Park is a race course
Lingfield
in
Park is a race
Surrey.
course.
It's a race course in Surrey, so it's got loads of great spaces and they've got really good infrastructure for stuff like this. So, sorry, I just want to double check that people knew where it is and what it
Lingfield
is.
Park is a race course in Surrey, one of the biggest race courses. It's part of the ARC Events Group, so they have multiple sites across the UK, and they have a management team that assists running all the sites, and then they have their own team on Lingfield who manage everything to do with Lingfield Park effectively. So I had a load of meetings, and then I didn't actually see Lingfield on that day, but I had some interesting spaces come up and some interesting opportunities, including smaller ones, which we might actually better run alongside Lingfield, and that's spaces that we are going to look into and explore over the coming weeks, especially for some really cool little pop-up parties. There's a really cool cafe in Oxted High Street, which are keen to do something with us. And that could be a really, really great sort of feeder event along the way into this year's festival. And then about a week later, I had a meeting with Lingfield. I spoke to the hotel manager, and she invited me to come down and meet the team. Their area manager, the events manager for Lingfield Park, and her. And we had a lovely meeting. They were obviously aware of me because I'd known them before, and they knew me from my partnership with Oxted Festival, what we did. And we went through and run some numbers. They are really keen to bring dance music to Lingfield. So they do dance music based events at some of their other race sites, and they've been doing really well. And they were looking for an opportunity to bring a dance music festival to Lingfield Park, which is where we came in quite nicely, actually. And with what we've done previously, they know that that's our space and we fit into that very well. And they know that we can put a good event on. And so they put a really nice, really fair deal in front of us to bring the festival to Lingfield this year. And everything made sense. They've got a great infrastructure there. They've got a lot of facilities already there. They've got a great team behind them that are used to dealing with big numbers and big footfall throughout the day. They've got wonderful food and drink facilities. They've got an impeccable safety record, which is a massive thing. They've got a really good relationship with a safety advisory group who are to do with the local council, making sure that big events are run safely, big and small events. And it made complete sense. And they're just lovely people over there. And so we decided that that was a great thing to
Is a
do.
hotel on site as well,
There's a
so it's
hotel
like
on site. There's a
that's
train
amazing.
station directly opposite with links south to East Grinstead and north right into London. So
All
everything
goes all the way to Victoria, doesn't it? Yeah.
at this stage for where we are and where we want to be and could potentially be across the next few years made sense. So, and we obviously spoke about it as a team privately, and there was so many positives to that deal. So we decided, yeah, let's do it. Let's go ahead. Let's move the festival to Lingfield Park. Let's start prepping. So the last couple of weeks have really been prep stages. So we obviously met on site, us and Greg, with our wonderful videographer Joe, Marshall Visuals on Instagram. Great videographer. He's been involved in the music scene for a few years now. He's been doing bits for us for the last just over a year. Wonderful
Those
guy.
taster videos that you did in your vision of having it come out onto the site. I mean, people can go and have a look online, but those videos, those taster videos about the launch ones are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and they're really impactful. And you can tell that the whole thing's gone up another level. It looks really, really good.
That's one of our biggest things this year. We're increasing capacity. We're aiming for double last year. We can go slightly more if it comes to it, but we're aiming for double capacity on last year. So that's a big ask. We obviously knew the effort that went into getting 1,000 people in last year.
Well, so I think it's a big ask, but it's not. I think that's one thing that we've always discussed is to not try and grow too fast too quickly, because people do that and they then start getting massive facts, massive sites, and there's a whole completely different ball game then, isn't it? I think if you think about why Elemental was growing quite quickly over the last few years, I mean, like doubling the capacity within that infrastructure and working with Lingfield with their marketing and things like that is, I don't, I think I touched with it, but it's not, I don't think it's a big stretch. We're not looking to get, because potentially that site, you could have gone, tell you what, we get investment, get some sponsorship, we'll get some massive acts, we have huge stages, we'll go from, 1,000, 1,500 to 10,000. I mean, that is always we've seen so many brands and organizations just go full flat because they've done that too quickly.
Come and go fast. I mean, especially since COVID, how many festivals and events have you seen come and go? Oxted Festival probably leading into COVID was at its strongest point. 4 years later, it's done and dusted, and it had a good following and a really good amount of people locally that attended it year after year religiously were part of that. And there's so many of them around the country. I mean, I don't have the stats and figures in front of me, but the amount of clubs, pubs, festivals closing every year is staggering. It's worrying
Yeah,
from what we're doing. But what we're
it is.
not doing and what we're trying to learn from that is we're not trying to take the world on. We're trying to learn every year.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. But We're trying to learn. We're trying to build a really nice community around what we're doing. We're not spending fortunes on big headline acts. We're trying to create a vibe where people come for Elemental. They don't come for a big headline act, because then it becomes almost a concert for them. You might grab another. If you went to 10,000, yeah, okay, you've got to go and spend a fortune on a big headliner. Then it becomes the headliner show. And your retention of them people becomes a lot harder, because you need to match that year after year. You can't really go backward. I mean, you can, but it's not a great look in terms of going backwards. But getting back to,
Anyway, sorry, mate. I diverted you. Yeah, sorry, mate. It's about Lingfield. So I think it'd be good to talk about the date, what you hope to get
sorry,
out
we were
of it,
talking about
and
social
then maybe.
media, the
Oh,
social
yes,
media
we were.
campaigns.
Sorry.
So
Yes.
sorry, yeah. So
Yes.
with the lift in capacity, one of my biggest focus this year is that we can really elevate our social media offering, how we do our promo and marketing material, and that launch video. Like you say, last year I launched the festival with a flyer that said Elemental Festival coming this date. And again, it did its job at the time, but it just felt like this year, if we're going to move up a level, everything's got to go with it in terms of how we promote. Um, and one of them things, and we learned a lot from our music last year as Deep Fiction. We brought Joe into the fold last year to quite a few of our gigs. We brought him in to do some promo stuff. We did a wonderful rooftop shoot, and we did a couple of promo videos for singles. And although they might not translate immediately in terms of numbers, even promo videos, you've still got to promote them the right way, and they might not latch on social media wise instantly, because quite often now people want the raw behind the scenes footage, and that will get more views. But actually, you as a brand, the amount of people already in the last week, the last 4 days since we launched that video, have gone, that promo video is incredible.
It is good.
And that's what we need. That's what we want, and we need to get as many eyes on it as possible.
And then
Uh,
cutting that into the visuals from last year, where we had a decent crowd, and it was good. That just shows how live it is, I think, and it
yeah,
shows so
100%.
you've got the concept of the new stuff, what it's going to look like, and then, by the way, this is what we did last year,
Yeah,
so it's going to be even bigger and better.
yeah, and having that, and that's the thing as well with um, bringing these videographers and photographers along to these events. A lot of the time, it's not to do with showcasing that event as such. It's not a case of, I want loads of video to look really great on my social media. We're creating banks of content, and that's really, really important to future proof what you're doing. And I actually had this conversation in my early stages of being involved with Oxted, because they weren't involved as much in the events world. It was very much put on by a team that were from other worlds coming in. And one of the things I discussed with them quite in detail in the first few years of being involved was the importance of the content that you grab from one year's festival is not just about showcasing what you're doing then. It's about in a year's time showing people what you've done
Yeah, 100%.
and how you and that getting people to want to come. So obviously Joe was at our festival last year and had all this content. So it wasn't like you didn't actually have to film a huge amount. As you know, you were on site with us and we were filming together. It was a case of getting maybe 30 seconds of good clips that then integrated really nicely in with the last year's clips to create the whole picture of, here's the new site, here's some drone shots, here's a bit of an interesting intro, which I thought worked because we could create the little snippet video of me sitting on the
It
steps,
really grabs you. Yeah,
and then the zoom out, and then suddenly, and then you're bouncing between some nice drone footage of us and a footage of us at the site, and then bouncing between really energetic, fun footage from last year. So that was the thinking behind that video, and it's been very well received. So really, really positive about that. Um, and then obviously it was a case of getting tickets live last Friday and doing the venue announcement, working with the marketing teams at Lingfield Park, because it's a case of they need to accept the collab posts, they need to share it their side. We had to get some artwork done. So that was really important to get the basics of the artwork. And then what we had to create for Lingfield Park was a different set of visuals. So when you do your artwork, obviously for Facebook, you're in 4:5 size, and then real size is slightly bigger. I think it's 16:9 or 9:16, one way or the other. It's a 16:9 clip, the opposite to YouTube. And then what they need for someone like Lingfield Park, because we go on their website, is they need another 8 different sizes of that artwork because there's all different places on their website and also for mobile and tablet functionality. So it that again in itself is quite complex because we had to come up last week with the right design that we were happy with and the overall branding for the festival, which can develop over time, but we're very keen that the brand voice is there. And that again links into this podcast. Obviously, we want the podcast branding to have that similar sort of feel. So you're looking at our logo, which is quite distinctive, and that branding, and it all ties across. There's quite a lot of work. It's not a case of jumping on Canva. We do use Canva. Obviously, Joe, our design guy, uses Photoshop and Adobe and more advanced tools. But the way we work is because Joe again's got a full-time job, and is between me and Joe, we bounce the ideas around for the design. And then what I try and get is all of our artwork and our branding in downloadable chunks. So we have a main background, which can be adjusted. We can then layer the logo, the right fonting, and everything into the right places. And then I can quickly juggle things around if I need to. I've always got my laptop with me. If I suddenly need an extra design in a different size, or I need to come up with 8 different sizes for Linfield, I can quite easily do that by using Canva. Canva's a great tool, especially for newer up and coming brands and DJs to get your head around. It's such a great place to work. It's really simple to use. Spend a couple of days on it and work it out, and maybe follow some YouTube tutorials or some of their own tutorials. It can really help you with the basics of getting your brand right. You can create brand kits on there, so you can get your fonting, your color schemes, your logo, and everything in one place, and do all your designs from that point. So it becomes a big. Imagine you're a brand new artist and you're just starting your own events brand up and you're taking on a small venue like we were back in the day. Obviously, we had Joe on board, so that was a slightly different kettle of fish because one of the guys is a designer. What I would be doing if I was starting my own brand on my own is getting my head around basic things like Canva and CapCut for video editing. Again, the professionals aren't using these tools, but at that point when you've got no money and you've got no budget or very little budget, if you can get your head around them things and master them things, they're just incredible, incredible tools.
Makes
Until
everything look 100% better, doesn't it? Yeah, of
makes
course it
everything
does.
look much, much better. And it's to a professional eye, obviously, they'll be able to tell that it's not quite Canva, but for what you need at that point, absolutely perfect. Completely for I think it's £10 a month for, say, a Canva subscription. Some people will balk at it. I think it's an absolutely brilliant app, brilliant tool for anything, even loading your photos in. If you get some press shots done for your, um, for obviously your press kit, you can just load that photo on and write text over it, and you can line it all really simply. You can add a logo if you can create a logo in there and write whatever information you want on it. Really simple to use. So stuff like that's really great for new brands, new DJs, and really important to get your
It
head
is.
around that. And again, that
So,
goes.
what other the major things? Sorry, mate, I interrupted you. Let you finish. Sorry.
Sorry, I've lost my way, but carry on. Go, go, go.
No, I was going to ask what. So that's the design side of it. So people think about that, which is really important. Whatever sort of main things you've been in the last couple of weeks since launching?
The main things have been the promo video, sorting out contracts with Linfield, which we can't go into too much, obviously, because that's legal side. We've been dealing with the artwork, which is really important. Uh, Release day is a whole new kettle of fish. I'll get to that in a minute. Ticket release day. We have been walking around the site, coming up with ideas for how we're going to lay out the site and what that's going to look like. We've got some wonderful ideas, but just talking to some people. I had a meeting last week with our staging guy. Our guy who does our staging and our sound. A lovely guy called Ed, who did our stage last year and our sound last year, and he was absolutely brilliant. I've got another meeting today with a guy called Ali from Fusion, who did all our lighting last year and some other bits and pieces. Again, a lovely guy I worked with for a long time on private event work actually, but he's involved, used to own nightclubs around Tunbridge Wells and Tunbridge, and has always been in the event space. He's a really good friend of mine, good contact. We pass a lot of work back and forth. Very knowledgeable, and it's really important to lean on these people to get advice, see what will work, get them to see the space, because quite often these people will come up with ideas that we haven't even thought about, especially when they've got an army of
Definitely.
kit to hire out. I said to Ed in last week's meeting, like, whatever you've got, if you've got stuff stashed away in your hire fleet that might work really well, but I don't know about it, please just send us a cost on it and
Let me
some
know. Yeah.
photos, and we'll have a look
Yeah.
at it and see whether it's in budget and see if it works.
That's
Um,
cool. So I was gonna mention two things. I know we can't talk about the actual contract with Lingfield because some of it's commercially sensitive, but I think in general, what people will need to know, and this is with quite a lot of clubs now as well, if you're hiring a space, you'll probably get a guaranteed bar take on certain. So most venues who we work with now are sort of guaranteed bar take. If not, you've got to cover some of their costs. When I started doing events years ago, you just dry hire it and had to sort of set up. But these days, and especially for ones who've got a big infrastructure, they'll want a certain amount of cost to make sure they cover the cost during the day. And if you don't do that, that's some of the things you need to front up. I think people need to be aware of that. Also, what I like doing with you, Dean, is looking at the stuff that we want to get to, but actually, the more ticket sales you get, the bigger offer you can have and people expect. So I think we're talking about staging at the moment. Yes, we're going to have a main stage. Yes, we're going to have VIP areas, but actually, as you speak to brands, as more ticket sales happen, you can, I mean, yes, people want to make it wash its own face, but we want to put on the best experience we can possibly. So the more ticket sales happen, the more you can invest in it. So that, like I think we said via message in digital word, I call it a minimal viable product. So you've got a thing that you want to, that is brilliant, which is really good, but actually there's loads of things on the backlog, they call it, that you really want to do, but you'll do that once the budget gets released to do that. So I don't know if you want to explain your thinking around that for this festival.
so yeah, first point on venue hire and minimum spends. So I can't go into detail on obviously the deal that we've got with Lingfield and how that looks exactly, but there is really, you touched on it. There's two real ways to hire a venue. Some venues will be a simple dry hire, like you say, which used to be more common. Still a thing, and it's still doable in a lot of spaces. Dry hire will basically be, they will normally say, here's the space. Um, your cost to hire this space is X amount. And sometimes they'll take the bar. Sometimes you might run the bar yourself. Sometimes they'll manage the bar and you can take a split of the profit on that bar at the end. And again, that usually separately will be another deal in terms of they might need to hit a minimum spend number before that percentage kicks in. But effectively, with the dry hire, there's no, you pay that fee. Say you hire a nightclub, it's £2,000 to hire that nightclub, and that means a complete dry hire space. So you do what you want with it effectively. You can bring in your own teams to run security, you can bring in your own teams to run the door, you can bring in your own staff to generally run the night, your own tech, this, that, and the other. You effectively just hire an empty space. Minimum guaranteed spend deal normally comes into play where you've got a venue, again, say it's a nightclub or a bar, where all you're effectively doing is you quite often don't pay a higher fee in that scenario. Sometimes you do, or you might pay a smaller higher fee than a dry hire. Is you will go in, set up your decks. Quite often there'll be equipment there. Sometimes there isn't, so you've got to hire that in. You'll sell the tickets. You'll bring the people in. They'll take the bar. They'll take any food. They'll run the security. They'll effectively run it as they would on a normal night, but you take over as the brand and you run it musically how you want. You sell tickets to your people, and it's your night completely effectively. Again, in that scenario, you can negotiate with them for a cut of the bar. It might be a case of if you hit X amount of spend at your bar, which might be and quite often that relates to their usual take. So say a bar takes 10 grand on a Saturday night, usually without you. So you're no benefit to them unless they hit that 10 grand. They might say, look, once we've hit our minimum Saturday night spend of 10 grand, then we will kick in a 10%, 20% split of anything over and above back to you. So they've covered their basic costs. And then anything over and above that is a win for everyone all round. And you can get some of those costs back. So it's all up for negotiation as well. It's a great
Yeah,
way to get yourself into venues and just have a chat and see what their deal is. Some venues will just there'll be no deal there. It'll be a case of we want to put some music on, come and have a space for free, either free tickets or a small charge for tickets. Here's your space. We've got a bar. We take the bar. You do the tickets. Simple. Job done. And it can be
it
that.
really varies, doesn't it? It does vary, and I think it depends because it's like every industry. Some people will try and take the piss, but some people will generally want to work with you and try and develop something, and they're the best relationships to have.
And that was one thing that we really felt with Lingfield Park was that we were going in as more of a partnership and that we were going to be a help for each other and that between us we could develop something that would be really, really great and another step up for our festival. Um, you also, there's another side to it's not just the on-site stuff that you think about. You've also got to think about the marketing side of things as well. So
Mm.
on a dry hire,
Yeah, yeah.
traditionally, the club again will you advertise an event or if our first event. So I'll go back to that. We hired the private space underneath the bar. So all they did was put a couple of staff in and took the bar for that space. We paid them a small hire fee. The same as you would do if you're throwing your nan's 80th in there. Exactly the same
Yeah.
concept. Um, it's a private party as such, but we had to run tickets on the door. We had to promote it, blah, 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 blah. It's nothing to do with the venue. And again, it changes the dynamic and the finances of it. If you know that venue's got quite a good following itself, does similar type events to you, and may be able to help in that promo, there's another negotiation side there where you might be able to say, "Look, maybe we do a slightly higher fee, or maybe we do a split of ticket costs, and the venue actually help promote that alongside you. So they can use your mate. They'll do some mail outs on their mailing list. If they've got a website, the tickets go live on their website as well as your website. You can dual ticket platform. So the same as we've done with Lingfield, tickets are live on Lingfield Park's website, also on our platform. What that does is it very much increases the visibility because most ticketing platforms will have their own little promotional tools and mail outs. Also, we've got quite a decent mailing list attached to ours. Mailing it at Lingfield Park have got obviously a great following from the events that they do, and quite a lot of it borderline similar sort of styles to what we're doing. They have DJs on after racing and things like that. So the more reach we can get as a team, the better. And that all that's going to do is help generate more interest. More, it's getting eyes on what you're doing is the hardest thing because quite often people will buy tickets, but you need them people to see that you're doing something.
Yeah, definitely.
We're in
100%.
the best possible position we've ever been to do that with social media, but you've still got to do the work to do it.
But yeah, it's not easy. I mean, you talked about a lot of the stuff that's already happening, and there's loads more to go, isn't it? We could talk through that as we go through the podcast, I think, as well,
Yeah.
because this is just the start of it. I mean, there's a load of work to do before pre-launch. So there's all the marketing side of it, there's social media side of it, there's the contracts side of it, there's the infrastructure bit about the staging, the planning, and then we haven't even talked about we talked about how to book acts last time, but actually deciding who to put on the stages is always really difficult, especially when you're dealing with your mates, dealing with some amazing DJs. We've got a really good network who are brilliant people. So, you could fill those stages 3-4 times over with amazing DJs and amazing people, but then also you've got to work out, do you want to get an act in as well? And that's quite a lot to think about. It's not just stick a stage up and have a party, but that is lovely, but there's a lot of stuff to go behind it. And it's just tickets are now live. We haven't said when it is, actually. Do you want to say when it
7th of
is?
July at Lingfield Park.
I mean, people should know that if they're not on our socials, but yeah, never to
Yeah, I mean,
July,
it's
which is a
pretty, it's quite
great
well
time to have it.
publicised. One of the other things you were talking about was quite interesting was um, the layout of the site and how what we're going to put there. And that's again a really interesting thing to think about because you've got to think, and you touched on this. Obviously, we've got a target for tickets, but it's especially at the stage that we're at. I mean, obviously, if you're working with massive marketing agencies and big teams that are really clinical and have really specific ways, or they've got a capacity that they're just aiming for, they've got to hit that. You can have a very clear idea of your budget and what you're going to do in them spaces. But what I've been trying to sort of do, and we've been discussing as a team, is like I'll try and walk through the site and think that would be really cool there. This would be really cool in that space. We could potentially do another stage here, and almost you're dreaming up your perfect festival. But a lot of that
So we have
depends.
literally done that. So that's what we literally did. So we walked around the entrance
Yeah,
bit and walked through. And so, well, that'd be good there to welcome people. That'd be good there visually. You could have a stage there possibly. And with a site like this, it's really flexible where you can put certain things. And then you walk through into the main stage. So it's a really good way of doing it.
yes, exactly. But a lot of that again depends on hitting certain parameters on ticket sales because everything we do costs money. Um, so we've obviously got at the moment. I'm sort of creating it within our spreadsheet. We have a Bible spreadsheet which has got loads of different tabs on it for different things, right from budgeting right down to ideas for this podcast because it's all tied in. Uh, it's a case of here's the dream scenario, everything we want. There's the bare minimum, which we know we need to put a main stage festival stage on, and we know we've done a VIP offering this year. So that's our bare minimum at this stage. We've got 2 arenas, main stage, VIP. We obviously know with a site like that, which is quite unique because, as you know from walking around, there's lots of different spaces as you walk through to the main stage areas and the VIP. There's some really interesting spaces. There's a phone box in the middle of the site, which we've got some really cool ideas for. And it's about creating a different experience to what people have had before with us and maybe to what they've had at other festivals. We want people to come and go away and have some great memories and you want that say wow factor, which is a bit of a knobby thing to say, but it is that factor of you want people to talk about things
Yeah, of course you do. You want to be different and people enjoy themselves. That's the most important thing.
over and
Or we wouldn't
above
bloody bother doing it, would we?
over and above. I mean, obviously the main things are you want people to have a nice time and you want them to go home safe. That's your 2 key factors. But within that, you having a nice time also means different things to different people. So by adding different spaces and just different things, I mean, right up to big festivals, you've got fairgrounds in them and you've got activity areas and things like that. It's all to create experiences for a wider audience. And that's now what we're trying to think about going from putting a stage in a field with some food and drink effectively like last year to actually scaling up and going, how do we now go from that field to a better festival experience for a wider audience? There will have been people that walked away last year probably and thought, yeah, it's just a few DJs in a field. It was. That's effectively what it was.
It was a bit more than that. It was a
Of
bit more
course it
than
was.
that.
But
It's,
but to break it down really simply, it's it was a great first year for us and it was a lovely vibe. Everyone had a wonderful time. So but now we're thinking slightly differently and adding to okay, we've put people in a field. We've done a little stage at a bigger festival. We've put people in a field and done our own version of the festival. Now we're at in our opinion, a much better site, a bigger site, a more interesting site as well, which is quite fun to be approaching.
is exciting. It is exciting. So I think I've probably got to certainly move on to the Oxted move to Titsy and what that involved, I think. But
Absolutely.
I think to recap on that, I think this is really exciting. Lingfield's going to be really, really good. It's really exciting. The site has so much potential, really does. And to be working with a professional marketing team and the infrastructure they've got. I mean, we'll explain the Titsy site in a second, but I mean, we took the piss last time, but you were literally putting fences up, and we had to get your relatives to help out on the bar at some point as well, which we talked to, and that to have the support of an infrastructure like Linfield is going to be really exciting for us. I think it's be really good. So on that note, so how come Oxted? How come we had to move from Oxted then, Dean?
So let's start with the last year at Oxted. So the last year at Oxted was a really interesting one, and it was an interesting time for the festival because they'd been operating at a certain level for a few years, and the management team behind the whole festival made a decision after 2023 that they wanted to try and scale everything up the next year. It was ticking along pretty nicely, but to start, but it wasn't. It wasn't generating much money anymore after the COVID thing. Costs had gone up a lot, so it became a much harder thing to do. So what they wanted to do was put on bigger acts. They wanted to increase our stage size because our numbers had been really good, and obviously the bar in our space had done really good, which we spoke about last time. So the whole concept was bigger and better. What's the whole thing? So we spoke about videographers and social media and things like that. Up until that point, social media had been run by volunteers. In the grand scheme of things, it was pretty crap. But again, it's run by volunteers who don't really know their way around basic social media. And so they got a company called the Everyday Agency in T, who are heavily involved in the music industry.
Yeah, I know them. They're brilliant.
Yeah, lovely people, absolutely great to work with. They were involved with the design and the marketing, the promo of the festival. They booked some big headliners. They had Ella Henderson and Example headliners in. So obviously household names across the 2 days, which was a massive step up. And then for our stage, they basically came to us and said, they gave us, it was quite interesting actually the way they did it. They gave us our budget, which they normally give us. So at that time, I think it was about 3 or 4 grand to go away and find all the sort of smaller acts and mid-level acts, any entertainment, saxes, bongos, whatever we had. We had the live band in as well, doing bits and pieces. Now, what they also did was they said, here's another pot of money, which at that time is 10 grand. There's a 10 grand pot there, but I have to spend it on headliners. So it was very separate. It wasn't a case of here's 15 grand, go away and book your lineup. It was, there's 10K,
Yeah.
10 grand there, go and find the best headliners that you can find for that budget. That was an interesting experience in itself, actually. But actually really fun trying to do that, having that money to play with. And so what me and Nick did, obviously Nick, who's sadly no longer with us and run the dance tent with us, we had quite a few meetings. And at that point, it was probably obviously we spoke about dealing with Ellie Cox and her agent before and some smaller acts, but we were now delving into the realms of talking to some big names and some big agencies. And that was quite interesting, trying to navigate our way around that. But what we basically worked out was, and again, I can't go into exact figures and bits and pieces, but it was trying to find the best value for that. You've got to, similarly with smaller lineups, you've got to find the best artists who are going to attract the right audience for where you are and the biggest sort of name to budget ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's loads of people you can get for 5-10 grand, but actually trying to get the best value for that money took us quite some time.
Yeah, it does.
In the end, we ended up with, so on the Friday, what we actually did was we loaded Saturday and spent all that money on Saturday. So Saturday, you actually played on the Saturday afternoon, didn't you? Saturday was really strong. We had Friday night's always traditionally been the over 18s, more relaxed night. People come in. So we had what you'd see as a typical Elemental at Oxted Festival on the Friday night. We had Lizzie Curious, who's absolutely wonderful in. With Tristan, we had
She's great.
Jesse, we had Cash Only, who was absolutely brilliant. And then Saturday, that was also a bit more of an older school lineup. slightly older heads, been around a while, know the scene, slightly more classics music. And then we loaded up Saturday. It was probably our strongest lineup we've ever put together for a day. It was incredible. Obviously, the big man,
It was good.
Lukey, and then we had Keek down, who we spoke about last time in our connections with him. We had Ellis Moss, another one who played with us before. Jen Getz and Alfie, who were coming up quite hot at the time. They had a big year that year. We had Second City and GW Harrison. We got them in for a back-to-back, which was absolutely fabulous. And that was an
They're excellent.
festival exclusive that year as well. So that was something really cool. And then obviously we got Judge Jules into headline. I mean, you could not bloody move in that tent when Judge Jules was in there. It was
I
absolutely.
mean, and to be honest, when you said that we got Judge Jules and with their lineup, because you think about the techie, garagey stuff and the deep stuff all building up into the day, and I thought Judge Jules, a bit old school and all that, but actually for that, like you said, for that price point, for that festival, that time of day, and also with the older crowd coming in later for Oxted, it worked brilliantly.
It worked really, really well. And it just did the job that it was supposed to do. And everyone had a lovely day. The tent was absolutely packed. There was football on that day as well. England were in a World Cup quarter-final against Sweden. I think it was Sweden. So then we put that on big screens. Again, that was an interesting one. We had to cover the site fences. Quite an interesting story. So we basically had to apply to the council to put the football on these big screens, which is pretty standard procedure. But what they said was, because we'd have Harris fencing around the site plan, and it's open on one side, so you can actually watch the cricket.
Yeah.
You can sit, there was nice chairs. You can watch the cricket, have a beer while you're in the festival, hear the music in the background. And that was sort of the whole premise of the festival, which is why they wanted to keep it year after year. But part of the license to play the football was that we had to cover the fencing up because we had to stop people standing at the fence, peering through, watching the football on the big screens. Because they didn't want people gathering, as they called it.
I never thought of that.
I mean, in our view, it was utter nonsense because why would you watch football through a fence on a big screen when you can probably go to any other pub or venue around? Anyway, so there was a big argument with obviously Nick, our good friend, and some of the festival team because he was like, we have to be able to watch the cricket. Nick's a massive cricket head, I've been a part of that club for years. And he's like, what do you mean we can't watch the bloody cricket? So Nick, and they were putting all this
one side, football
covering up on Friday, ready for the festival launch. But the football was Saturday afternoon, and Nick went, no, we can't. We got cricket on tonight, cricket on tomorrow lunchtime. He said, I'll personally cover this fence myself an hour before kickoff. So he was around there covering all the fencing up on the afternoon of Saturday so that it was in place for the football, but we didn't have to cover it up for all the cricket. So that was quite an interesting dynamic to get around. Great year, great festival for us. I had a bit of issue with the staging. We built all the staging in like a 360 style because that was just coming in as the thing at that time, the 360 stages. And health and safety came round and went, can't put that there, mate. So
as annoying.
Yeah, something to do with the way the people flow, and they flew around because the toilets were around the back of our stage, so we couldn't have that. So that was a big drama on day one. But we rebuilt it, got it up and running, and actually it worked better.
I mean, visually the staging worked. Yeah, the visually worked really well.
It worked very better. I was very anal about where I wanted it, so I was very upset when I couldn't have it exactly where I wanted it. But actually, it worked really well, and it was still brilliant in there. We'd had screens.
Well, that's the point, actually. I'm going to say you do all the best plans, but actually on the day, if you get health and safety people telling you can't do X, Y, and Z, you've got to be really flexible around the space, really, haven't you?
It's really frustrating, actually. It's a really frustrating thing especially when I'm thinking it's my
That's not how you put it. That's not how you put it. That's not how you put it. I think you used to do Fs and Jeffs and...
There might have been a few flying around, but do you know what? The thing with them teams there is you all sort of end up swearing at each other and having a bit of a ding dong, but then an hour later you all have a beer and you sit down and you go, well, we got there in the end.
Yeah.
And that's the best teams to work with, I think, is you can have them moments in business where it gets a bit heated and you might have a disagreement, and then you're all best mates again a couple of hours later.
How come? What happened to this? So that was. I mean, it was a brilliant year, and that Saturday was absolutely brilliant. So what happened then? How come it
So there was
stopped, and how come we had to find a new
the
home?
biggest problem with the festival that year was the weather. Friday night absolutely pissed it down to the point where obviously Example was supposed to be on the main stage. But the way it was set up was main stage, beer tent. When you say beer tent, it was fucking huge. And then
It was huge.
it was R10 down the bottom, which again was bigger than we'd had before, but it was the smaller zone. It was so wet they had to move Example into the beer tent and cancel the last act in there. So the beer tent was absolutely rammed. Now, what that did for us as a brand was fantastic, because about 4:30 on Friday, what used to happen obviously was through the evening between 4 and 8, people would start coming. If the sun was out, we had like a terrace out the side, the cricket on, some lovely seating. People would gather, and then people would slowly, as they do in most events, the dance floor would just build and build and build and build and build. Because the rain came down about 4:30, and suddenly the outside space in the cricket wasn't a thing, and we were packed by about 5 p.m.
It's rammed, wasn't it?
and it just got busier and busier and busier. So from our point of view in our stage, we're looking at thinking, this is brilliant. This is amazing. But what's good for us was actually terrible for the festival as a whole, because traditionally what they get is they get a lot of walk-ins on the Friday night, sort of between 500 and 1,000 walk-ins to the festival. That drastically affected it. It was a handful, because obviously people haven't committed to buying tickets. So
Yeah,
then
it's a big drop.
what's happened is, and you're talking, I think we're about 50, 60 quid a ticket at this stage. It's a lot of money not in. And then that knock-on effect
Just yeah,
again hits the bars and the food. Suddenly your income, without doing any maths, is horrendous for day one.
mm, mm.
And then you add that to the no-shows because it's raining, especially people who have bought weekend tickets, and because it's quite a local thing, a lot of people will buy the weekend ticket and they might pop in on the Friday, or they might do Saturday, and then they might do Saturday or Sunday. They flow quite a bit because the prices difference wasn't horrendous to upgrade to the weekend ticket. It gave people flexibility to come in and out. So, and it carried on into Saturday. We did have some hours of sun on Saturday, and the evening was pretty good. But the afternoon, we saw a lot of rain. And then Sunday again, horrendous. Absolutely chucked it down all day. Sunday was a great day. We had Juliet Thurbs in on our stage, a lovely local lady who's worked with us quite a few times now, and she had a wonderful set. But
She's an Ibiza star now. She is.
she is an Ibiza star. She has been rising through the ranks very, very fast, and she's doing a wonderful job. So she had a great set on the Sunday. But so from our point of view, for filming and for the enjoyment of the stage, perfect. But for that festival as a whole, especially when you consider it was the year that they'd invested a lot of money in headline acts, a lot of money in us, a lot of money across the board. They've obviously hired in T. That comes with financial implications. Suddenly you've got to hit a lot of parameters. You're not just wiping your ass anymore with a bit of fencing, a few stages, some smaller DJs, a couple of mediocre headline acts. You're talking big, big money now.
Yeah,
You're talking
it's a big risk.
you're you're heading into seven figures just to put a festival on. And a lot of that you rely on the fact that you need people turning up and you need people spending money on beer for it to wash its face and come out the other side. Um, so afterwards, there was a hole, I believe, in the money that it had made. It hadn't covered its cost. And I think the organisers got to a point where they were struggling at the older model, slightly smaller. They tried to go big, and obviously they got caught out. And being locals and not being a big company with deep pockets and investment and things like that, they sat on it for a while and decided that eventually, I think they looked into some buyers, and there was some people from other festivals that looked at coming in. But again, being investors and businesses, I think one of the biggest problems was they worked out that they had to increase capacity on that site to be able to make it a really viable business model. And I just don't think that was doable from a council perspective, from the perspective of it's not a small, it's a town, but it's a very small town. Getting that many people when you're talking of I think last year capacity was 4.5, 5. But when you increase that in a tiny town, right in the middle of it as well, trying to get 8 to 10,000 people in, it's just the locals don't like it. Council
It's
don't
a
like
big
it.
push.
It's a
Yeah, it's a
massive
big push.
push, yeah. So we were at the point at the end of 24 where we didn't actually have anywhere to go. We'd been running our festival stage for 3 years at that point and running a lot of smaller events around it. And part of me thought, oh, that's the end of that then. It's been a nice ride. But typically we don't really work like
That was
that.
only a tiny part. That was only a tiny part.
Well,
That was about 2 days, I think.
for the same reason that we ended up with Oxted, I think, my brain just sort of went into let's just keep poking around a little bit and see what we can find. Interestingly, I got booked for a private gig. It was a biking event, a push bike event up at Titsy Brewery in, I think, September or October that year. The bikers all went off, had a ride, came back, barbecue beers, bales, DJ. That was the setup. I went in, did the private DJ, got chatting to Craig, who lives on site and is one of the owners of Titsy Brewery. He used to supply beer to Oxted Festival. That was an instant link there. He knew about us, knew what we did, what we could put
Yeah.
on. And they've got massive fields out the side of the brewery. So I sort of went,
Great site.
what do you feel about doing an event out the side where, because actually on our site was where we had the biker event to a much smaller scale. I think they had sort of 300 people on this biking event. I said, do you fancy putting on a little, I said, I want to basically move the dance tent, the model. It's just up the road. It's it's very flexible. I said, look, I don't know how that will transpire because obviously we've had the safety of Oxted and that's got its own merits and brought people through the door. I don't quite know what it will look like yet, but can we put on some sort of dance festival event? And he was like, yeah, why not? We had to look into license.
Let's have a go.
Yeah, have a go. Well, they tried to do a festival the year before, which they had to cancel because I think he tried to do it on his own and it wasn't quite set up right. They were then going to try it with some other guys that he was involved with, Titsy Fest, which they tried in May of the year of our festival.
I really don't know why they didn't call it Tits Fest. I mean, that would have got a lot more people going and more sales, definitely.
Yeah, but also probably some people turned up disappointed.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, it's just music.
No, that's a shame. That's a shame. As long as they paid the tickets, it's all good. Anyway, sorry, mate.
So yeah, sorry. I basically said to him, so I knew they were doing Titsy Festival in May. And I said, look, we want to do the same weekend as Oxted Festival was. There's a gap there now that people usually go out, needs filling. Can we try? I said, look, I was quite honest. I said, I don't know how it's going to go. We've obviously always helped promote through Oxted, and that's the way that we've generated our tickets. So I don't know how that model is going to transpire. We didn't have data as well. That was a big thing. We hadn't had data from Oxted Festival, something I now regret, but just wasn't part of our deal. And I didn't understand at the time the importance of that data. So we didn't have ticket selling data from Oxted Festival. So that was something I would never go
The
into.
site was and also the site is also outside the town. So you need to think about transport in and out as well. And it is literally just a field in a brewery, and it is literally doing a piss up in a brewery, isn't it?
Yeah. Can we organise? That was it. Can we organise a piss up in a brewery? I mean,
And we did.
well, we did. But I said to Craig, I said, look, if we get 100 people in, they had a little marquee up, which we actually used as stage 2, didn't we, for a little while? But I said, if we get 100 tickets sold, it's no bother. I've got my kit from private corporate work. I can put a little DJ stage there. You put a little bar on in the back. We'll put some lights up. We'll have a nice time. It'd be great. He sort of said that we can go to 1,000 at that time. So I said, okay, well, we've got a max. We've got 100. If it's 100, great. If it's 1,000, even greater. So, and that's to do with the licensing, because the licensing that they had at the time was they weren't licensed to do full events on that side. They were close enough to the brewery they could tap it to a TENS license, which is a temporary events notice. So you can get temporary events notices for anywhere, similarly to the laundrette we did on Saturday. So that was a functioning laundrette. They put a TENS notice into the council to say for this one night we're turning it into a bar / party zone, putting DJs in, doing this, that, and the other. You have to tell them your plans. You have to say, we're going to have X amount of security. Here's how we're going to keep it safe. Here's how we're going to run the bar. We've got someone licensed, all that sort of stuff. And then they either come back and reject it or approve it. So what we worked out was that we can put, it was technically under 2 TENS, I think. We had like a TENS license for the bar space and a TENS license for the staging area. Split into 2 500.
Can I just say as well, the licensing things, what people don't think about, they think they're going to put a party on in a field. And some people that we know of have set everything up, done it all, and then the council have gone, well, what the bloody are you doing? Getting that license right is really, really important, because you'll just get, if land site owners or the local council see that, or entertainment license, see that you're putting on an event without those licenses, they will stop it. And you would invest time, money, and energy before even, and even selling tickets sometimes before a license has been agreed. And don't do it. Make sure you get the licenses done first.
I actually had a meeting with someone before we dealt with Lingfield this year. I had a meeting with another site, and I'm obviously not going to mention names, but the guy who run this site had a big vision a couple of years ago to put a festival on his site. Brilliant site, great site. Put it out live, sold 3,000 tickets, and the council got wind that he sold 3,000 tickets before he put his license in, so they rejected it, and he had to refund everybody. Which you don't want to have to do, because then you're invested in time, marketing, money, and that's the worst thing to do, because if they see that, as soon as they get wind that you're doing it on the assumption, they'll just do it. It's almost like prodding the beast and going, well, fuck you, we're going to do it anyway. And then, like anything, if someone goes ahead and assumes, especially the council, you've got no chance, have you?
No, definitely not.
So yeah, licensing is a really important part of it.
Yeah. So largely one of the things, and also what was the stuff that came up, and there's loads of stuff on your spreadsheet that you had that we didn't think of. So what sort of things did you have to think about for the day? So you're going from a site with all infrastructure done of a well-established festival to a field in a brewery. What sort of things did you have to put in place you didn't think of?
So initially, obviously my brain went to my old project managing days of there's certain things you need. You need a safe space that people can't get in and out of. You need a secure site. You need facilities like washing facilities. You need to be able to have fresh drinking water. We need people able to eat, to be able to go to the toilet. We need security. Security was a big thing. Probably at the start, under budgeted for security and first aid. What else did we need? Power was a big thing. I was really surprised by the power. It wasn't hugely expensive, but it was something that you just think, I'll just run some leads from somewhere. There must be some three-phase
No,
power.
you need your own power source, yeah.
But the way obviously power travels and where you need it in relation to the staging and everything. So we ended up having to hire a generator in. I think we had a backup generator as well, because again, if the power goes mechanically, and you're in the middle of an event, if you're at 3-4 p.m. and you've got 1,000 tickets sold and the power goes and you've got no backup for the sake of a few hundred quid, you're in big trouble, because you're sending these people home and obviously most of them are going to want refunds. And by that point, all the money's spent. So
what about online? What about overnight security once the staging's up? How did you deal with that, Dean?
So that was something I completely didn't think about. That was an interesting story. I forgot about that, but I'm glad you brought it up, because that was an interesting story. So one of the things dealing with the tech team was, as part of their contract, because we had the event on the Saturday, Friday night we had to start setting up Friday afternoon, the site. So we put the stage in Friday morning, and we started setting up lighting. Sound started coming in Friday evening. We were there quite late. But one of the stipulations in their contract was that we had to have overnight security on site in case anything happened to the equipment or anyone came on. But my solution to that, which I thought was very simple, was, and I got it clear that it was okay. It didn't need to be an official security guard. It needs to be a presence on site. I thought, well, I'll just sleep on site. I'll just pop a tent up right next to the stage. Perfect. Again, and this is all to do with the cost savings of like, this is why we're putting up our own
Yeah, of
fencing.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
We'd hired a forklift from the farm down the road. Again, being in construction, I could work my own machinery. I'm forklifting things around site, and we're setting up fencing. But I packed my tent away on a Monday morning. So that's Friday morning. Said goodbye. So here's my other half. I'm off camping. We're going to set our site up, and I'm going to sleep there. It got really late into the night, so we've been setting up all afternoon, evening. Nick and Greg were there with us helping. You were there for a while. Went off for a curry, came back. They were still playing all the lights in. So we ended up actually programming lighting. We were testing all the lighting against the trees till about 2 a.m. They finished up, left, and I sort of thought, okay, I'll pop my tent out the car, set it up, which shouldn't take long, 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll get some sleep because I had to be up at 7, I think it was. So it was I was going to be lacking in time. What I didn't realise was when I unpacked my tent, last time I'd used it, I hadn't put the bloody poles back in the bag, had I? So I was like, fuck, what do I do? I'm in the middle of nowhere. I can't leave site, but I have my blow up bed. I thought, what is this? And then what I worked out was that the stage is the most enclosed space. It's reasonably windy up there.
Yeah.
The stage was the most enclosed space on the site.
That's waterproof.
It's waterproof, so it's dry, it's out of the wind. I thought, sod it, I'm gonna blow up my bed, laid out, set up a nice little bed. So on the back of the stage was just my little bed, and I slept on
That
there.
is brilliant, isn't it? It's hilarious when you told me in the morning. It was hilarious.
The only problem I did have was my blow up bed went down in the middle of the night. And you know when you can feel it gradually going down, and you can start feeling hard bits in your back, and then by the end of it, I was
And when you're
laying
tired,
there
you can't be
like a
asked.
on this pancake of a bed. Oh, this is horrendous. So then I'm up in the middle of the night. The generator's still running. That was annoying because the generator, because of the way the lights heat up and the sound heat, everything has to sort of warm up. And we'd set everything. We left that running all night. It just was cost effective and time effective to leave that running, but that meant the generator had to be running. So I had a generator here, but then I did have power to re-pump up the blow up bed. Yeah, but actually it led to a really sort of poignant moment where I woke up 7 a.m. festival morning, sun's coming
Your
up,
own
there's a
festival.
light due, and I was sort of just looking out at the stage at our festival site thinking this is going to be a big day. So
It's pretty cool.
that
is cool.
a really cool little, it was a cool little way to start it, actually.
It is. I think it might be worth talking about so because we were working with a brewery, they wanted to set their own bar up. And I think, Dean, you said to the brewery that the amount of money we take over the bar from Oxted is quite a lot, and we do more than actually the beer tents. So it might be worth discussing the challenges you had with the bar, how we overcame it. I think that'd be quite a good. That was the biggest stress in the day, I'd say. Apart from a little bit of rain in the morning, that cleared up, and that was amazing. And the vision of Carly playing that sort of that set with all the sunlight coming out was
It was just wonderful,
amazing.
wasn't it?
It was amazing. But the only biggest challenge we had was the bar, wasn't it? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so obviously the deal with Titsy, the brewery was we didn't pay a hire fee on the site because they were just finding their feet with doing events, which was great. We had to cover Craig's time, who was part of the brewery, so we paid him a fee to help out over the weekend, and he helped with site setup, site pack down, things like that. I got a really good relationship with Craig anyway, so it was nice to work with him. But basically, Titsy ran the bar. That was their part of the deal. We put 100 people, 1,000 people in the space, and they run the bar, but we negotiated a 10% kickback. So we spoke before about obviously margins and Obviously, we're British
Mhm.
people in here spending money with you. You've got a profit margin there. So they agreed to give us 10% back of the bar. One of the things that was quite interesting was they'd done their Titsy Fest, which we spoke about in May, and they'd run the bar, and the bar was set up really well. But the amount of money that bar took and the way it was set up, they almost transferred a similar vibe over to our festival. Now, there's very different crowds at them individual festivals. So at their festival, Titsy Fest, you have bands on every 45 minutes, I think it is. They do 45-minute sets, and they had a small 20-minute
Yeah.
changeover while the next band comes on.
Slightly different bands in it, yeah.
It was very local bands. Our good friend said DJ to close. I went along because it was actually, that's another thing. I went along to that festival because I wanted to get a feel for the site, how it was run, how it was set up, and just get an insight into what we can transfer from that to ours. The problem with the bar at that sort of festival was because a lot of it was families, people bring their picnics, bringing their own drinks and food in, sat around between these nice little bands, and they might pop to the bar every 45 minutes or so, grab their pint, glass of wine. So it was quite steady. You'd have a little bit of a queue in between, and then really steady while the bands or acts are on. And also because of the way it was very family friendly, you had quite waves of people. So you'd have like the day people would come in with their 3 kids. They'd have a lovely time. You'd have the evening party people come in who might be coming in at 5, 6 o'clock for a bit of a session in the evening and stay till the end. You got people to come in the middle. So again, numbers fluctuate a lot more than say a dance music festival. So the problem transferring that sort of bar model over to our festival was people don't people that come to a dance music festival, they'll turn up in a wave. And obviously this was another thing. It bloody rained at 12 o'clock, didn't it? We had beautiful sunshine leading up to our festival. And at midday, the rain came pouring down, didn't it? The minute the doors opened, it was like clockwork. Luckily, it lasted about an hour and a half in, and the rest of the day was beautiful. But what that did was a lot of people, I think, pushed back their entry time until probably 2 o'clock-ish. The biggest entry was sort of 2 till 4. But what then tends to happen is people, the sort of demographic that was at our festival, I'd say more drinkers and partiers, not families coming out for a pleasant day or couples coming out to enjoy a few beers and some bands. It was people that were coming out to have a nice few drinks and food in the afternoon, more shots coming into play, more cocktails coming into play, and then staying throughout the evening. So probably more of a gentle build, and then them numbers will hold. And there's probably a peak time, I'd say, of about 4 till 6, where the bar was absolutely
It was mad, wasn't it?
madness, and it just wasn't accounted for staffing wise. So what we actually had to do was we had a stage 2 set up, some wonderful DJs in there. They had a really nice vibe in it, but what we worked out quite quickly was that space was right next to the bar. So what we did was we actually pulled that DJ stage off, turned the music down, which was a shame because a couple of DJs didn't get to play. But logistically at the time, we were getting complaints. I mean, I was walking around with my Elemental t-shirt on. The amount of people stopping me going, "The bar's too busy."
Same, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you just want everything. But
You don't want
you
that.
you
Yeah.
care so much. You've got so many months of building into this, and you love it so much that your instant thing is to go, "How do we fix this?" Now, I was really, really fortunate. We shut that stage down, so we had that indoor space. I had my sister there with her husband and my cousin and his wife, and they were there to have a nice time. But they basically said, "Look, what do you need? Can we help?" Because they could see that the bar was a bit chaotic. So what we did was we just literally set a table up, grabbed another card machine because we had a few card machines over there, and we filtered all the wine and anything easily possible,
Shot a bottle brew up, yeah.
prosecco, a few bottled
Perfect.
beers, into that tent and set up another makeshift bar in about half an hour. Um, and that was, and what it did for about an hour, hour and a half was just ease the pressure. and it stopped people because the queue, I think, at one point was close to 45 minutes, which is not acceptable,
Yeah,
not from
yeah.
our standards of what we're trying to do. So we shift, and what I think it might have been you and me up down the line, just like, look, if you just want bottled
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
prosecco, wine, there's a new bar open around there. Go and grab your bottle. You'll be served in a couple of minutes. So that alleviated that pressure. The two bars were running a bit smoother, and then within another hour or so, I think people had slowed down. I think there was a really boozy few hours where people got there and going, let's get our drinks in and get ready for the party. And then it just really eased off. So we ended up shutting that space about an hour and a half later, but it just took that pressure off for that little period of time and helped alleviate some of people's stress, calmed everything down. And it was just a case of firefighting in that moment and coming up with a solution
It
to,
was.
because the easy thing is to go, well, here's what it is. You're going to have to queue, but we just,
No, you got to solve it.
but
Yeah, you got to solve it when it's that one, and people complaining, and most people are really polite about it. Say, look, we know it's your first one, we want to support you and all that, but that's just not long enough. And
yeah.
so yes,
Right, Luke.
and also the good thing about Lingfield is,
Cool.
sorry, the good thing about Lingfield is you've got all that infrastructure all set up, so they're used to thousands and thousands of people there. So
big numbers. Right, Lukey, I think we're out of time today, aren't we?
we are. Yes.
Now I
Got to go.
I want to
got to go and put the kids to bed.
I want to put a pin in that where we are now. I think we've had a lovely episode, but there's more stuff I would love to talk about in terms of probably a few bits about the last year at Oxted, and a bit more about our first year of the festival. So we'll touch base on that on the next episode, shall we?
That'd be brilliant. Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much, sir. Enjoy the rest of your week. Tickets are now live for this year's Elemental Music Festival, and we're going to a brand new home, Lingfield Park Racecourse in Surrey on the 11th of July. Early birds are out now. They might be gone by the time this comes out, but head to the lingfieldpark.co.uk website, or you can head to the link in all our social bios and grab your tickets.